Hello everyone, welcome to the course of Survey of Major English-Speaking Countries. Today we are going to learn Chapter 4, The Economy of Great Britain. This lecture is about Lesson A, The Industrial Revolution of Great Britain. The Industrial Revolution, also known as the First Industrial Revolution, was the transition to new manufacturing processes in the period from about 1760 to 1820. This transition included going from hand production methods to machines, new chemical manufacturing and iron production processes, the increasing use of steam power and water power, the development of machine tools, and the rise of the factory system. The Industrial Revolution also led to an unprecedented rise in the rate of population growth. The Industrial Revolution resulted in the most profound, far-reaching changes in the history of humanity, and its influence continues to sweep through our lives today. The last 250 years of industrialization have altered our lives more than any event or development in the past 12,000 years in where we live, how we work, what we wear, what we eat, what we do for fun, how we are educated, how long we live, and how many children we have. The Industrial Revolution provided the countries that first adopted it with the technological and economic advantages necessary to eventually rule most of the world. In short, the Industrial Revolution is the game changer of modern world history. More than anything else, it's what makes the modern world, well, modern. So, what is exactly the Industrial Revolution? An industrial revolution occurs when a society shifts from using tools to make products to using new sources of energy, such as coal, to power machines in factories. It's a shift from the home to the factory, from the country to the city, from human or animal power to engines powered by fossil fuels, such as coal and later oil. The industrial process occurred gradually, but the social and economic changes were so far-reaching over generations that, looking back, it becomes clear that they were nothing short of revolutionary. The Industrial Revolution started in England with a series of innovations to make labor force more efficient and productive. The Industrial Revolution is an era that began in England at the end of the 18th century for a variety of reasons. First, Britain had a huge market. After the Glorious Revolution, the British Parliament was made up of prosperous merchants and entrepreneurs who supported commerce and industry. Thus, Britain became the single largest domestic market in Europe. Internationally, Britain fought and won a series of wars against France. During the 7 Years' War, Britain seized most of the French colonial territories in North America, including Canada. Britain also captured the French trading colonies in India and became the world's leading colonial power. The colonies provided Britain with necessary raw materials and a large market for its industrial products. Second, England acquired from its colonies enormous wealth with which to develop its industry. The most well-known trading company is the East India Company, which had a trading monopoly in India and parts of East Asia. The Royal African Company was involved in trade in Africa, the slave trade in particular. All these activities accumulated a lot of capital for Britain's future industrial development. Third, the enclosure movement deprived many small landowners of their property. This new class of landless laborers now had to seek paid employment from the large landowners or to find work in the rapidly growing industrial areas. England experienced rapid economic development in the 18th century. The market demand for manufactured goods exceeded the supply. This motivated entrepreneurs to search for new ways to improve productivity. The Industrial Revolution began in the textile industry and was marked by a series of important inventions: spinning jenny, water flame, the spinning mule, the power loom, and the steam engine. These inventions completed the mechanization of the textile industry and prepared the way for a new system of production, large-scale industry. With these developments came a need for cheap means of transportation. Entrepreneurs invested in digging canals to ship goods to markets. In 1814, the steam locomotive was invented. The first railway was completed in 1825. By 1870, Britain had about 12,700 miles of railroad. Meanwhile, it had also built a large merchant fleet, which carried Britain-manufactured goods to all parts of the world. By the middle of the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution was accomplished in Britain. It changed the country in many ways. Its industrial productivity increased dramatically. Britain became the most advanced industrial country in the world. The country also underwent a process of urbanization. Many new cities sprang up, such as Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, and Sheffield. The Industrial Revolution also created changes in the social structure. The capitalist class became the most important force in the country. Meanwhile, the middle class and proletariat came into being. Now that we have looked at how and why the Industrial Revolution occurred, it's time to consider its effects on people. We learned that industrial production increased tremendously, bringing wealth and power to Great Britain throughout the 19th century. But we have to explore the effects of industrialization on society, on the daily living and the working conditions of common people. What was life like for the average industrial worker? Was living in a new industrial city and working in a factory an improvement over life in the countryside? Did the new factory life change for the better roles of family members? Were people healthier? In general, did the Industrial Revolution improve life for most people? Since the Industrial Revolution was so new at the end of the 18th century, there were initially no laws to regulate new industries. For example, no laws prevented business from hiring 7-year-old children to work full-time in coal mines or factories. No laws regulated what factories could do with their biohazard waste. Free market capitalism meant that the government had no role in regulating the new industries or planning services for new towns. And those who controlled the government liked it that way. Only a small minority of people, the wealthiest, could vote in England at this time. So, during the Industrial Revolution, the British society became the first example of what happens in a country when free market capitalism has no limits. What were the working conditions like during the Industrial Revolution? Well, for starters, the working class, 80% of society, had little or no bargaining power with their new employers. Since population was increasing, people from the countryside flocked to the towns and the new factories to get work. This resulted in a very high unemployment rate for workers in the Industrial Revolution. Desperate for work, the migrants to the new industrial towns had no bargaining power to demand higher wages, fairer work hours, or better working conditions. Worse still, since only wealthy people in Great Britain were eligible to vote, workers could not use the democratic political system to fight for rights and reforms. For many skilled workers, the quality of life decreased a great deal in the first 60 years of the Industrial Revolution. Working class people had little time or opportunity for recreation. Workers spent all the light of day at work and came home with little energy, space, or light to play sports or games. One of the defining and most lasting features of the Industrial Revolution was the rise of cities. This process of urbanization stimulated the booming new industries by concentrating workers and factories together. And the new industrial cities became, as we read earlier, sources of wealth for the nation. On the whole, working-class neighborhoods were bleak, crowded, dirty, and polluted. The densely packed and poorly constructed working-class neighborhoods contributed to the fast spread of disease. Poor nutrition, disease, lack of sanitation, and harmful medical care in these urban areas had a devastating effect on the average life expectancy of British people. The Industrial Revolution completely transformed the role of the family. In traditional agricultural society, families worked together as a unit of production, tending to fields, knitting sweaters, or tending to the fire. Women could parent and also play a role in producing food or goods needed for the household. Work and playtime were flexible. Industrialization changed all that. The same specialization of labor that occurred in factories occurred in the lives of the working class families, and this broke up the family economy. Work and home life became sharply separated. Men earned money for their families. Women took care of the home and saw their economic role decline. That's all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.